Welcome to a special edition of the See Life Different podcast, where I will be having conversations with health advocates from the HealtheVoices conference by Johnson & Johnson. Today we'll learn the power of stories from three advocates: Shanelle Gabriel, a lupus warrior and poet who turned her advocacy into art; Kamaria, Laffrey, an HIV advocate fighting to decriminalize HIV laws; and Valarie, Traynham, a multiple myeloma and breast cancer survivor working to increase clinical research participation in African American communities. But first, a reintroduction as to who I am and a little bit about my own invisible dual sensory diagnosis and disability. What if I told you that losing your sight and your hearing could actually help you see life more differently? I'm Zaakirah Muhammad. At 6 months old, I was diagnosed with Retinoblastoma, a rare childhood eye cancer that affects children under the age of 13. The treatment left me with a prosthetic right eye, a hearing aid that I wear in person, and a purpose: to empower others who are marginalized or invisible to the communities to confidently tell their stories, because my mom was my own advocate and told my story by any means necessary. Living with multiple disabilities hasn't been easy. I can't see out of my right eye. I can't hear well in my ears. I have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which affects my fertility, bloating, energy levels, and hair levels. My joints feel a whole decade older than I actually am. My brand, though, it's built on resilience. My mom and I wrote a book called Seeing Life Through a Different Lens, a survivor's memoir on overcoming adversity. That book became a podcast, the See Life Different podcast, a TEDx talk, the Seeing Life from a Different Lens TEDx talk, and soon a docuseries. I'm also a brand cultivating strategist, internationally known speaker, and I help creatives and entrepreneurs confidently tell their stories and build their brands so they too can make an impact in the lives of others. I do this by teaching entrepreneurs how to build their digital intellectual property using artificial intelligence and authentic storytelling. Whether it's through one-on-one consulting, workshops, retreats, I hope you recognize that your story is your superpower. As a Black American Muslim woman with disabilities, I know what it's like to feel like you don't fit the mold or fit the box or fit the status quo. That's exactly why I know that my voice matters, and yours does too. The world needs your unique perspective, your resilience, and your truth. I've also traveled to over a dozen countries across 4 continents, mostly solo, mostly to the continent of Africa. I've seen how multifaceted we are as a people. From navigating dark streets in unfamiliar cities to understanding different actions with limited hearing, I've had to become my own advocate. Travel is the best method of schooling and learning and unlearning. So now, are you ready to see life differently? First, grab my book, Seeing Life Through a Different Lens, available on Amazon as paperback, ebook, and audiobook. Second, follow me on social media at Illuminous1. That's ILLUMINOUSONE, or Google my name, Zaakirah Muhammad. And thirdly, let's get into the video that you came here for. First up, we're talking to Valarie Traynham. She introduces herself as a patient and research advocate based outside of Chicago, Illinois. She is a survivor of multiple myeloma and breast cancer, whose work in advocacy, awareness, patient education, and research focuses on the African American communities.
I am based out of the Midwest, just outside of Chicago. I am a patient advocate, research advocate. I call myself a community connector. I'm a survivor of multiple myeloma and breast cancer. I know most people know what breast cancer is, but multiple myeloma, it's an incurable blood cancer. It's a cancer of the plasma cells, affects your immune system. So I work in the area of advocacy, awareness about both of the diseases. I work to do our patient education, research access, making sure that we have access to research and being able to participate in clinical research so we can make a difference. And just making sure that our communities, especially the African American communities, are informed, they feel supported, and they feel seen throughout the cancer journey.
Shanelle Gabriel initially ignored joint pain, fatigue, and mysterious symptoms during her sophomore year of college in 2004. She dismissed them as stress or exhaustion, and it wasn't until her hair was falling out that she finally got help, leading to her lupus diagnosis. Her doctor's blood work revealed that she had every symptom on the lupus checklist, including a butterfly rash that she mistaken for sunburn.
Hello, so my name is Shanelle Gabriel. I'm a poet, an educator, a speaker, and a lupus warrior, a lupus patient advocate. Outside of that, I've toured doing poetry since back in the days of HBO's Deaf Poetry Jam. I've toured all over the globe at this point, everywhere from the Vatican to Carnegie Hall, just sharing my work around life and living life and life be life and how do you try to make sense of everything through your art. And that's pretty much what I do. I have a poem all about it. It's called Vanity, and vanity is the thing that led me to my diagnosis. So in 2004, I was getting ready to start my sophomore year of college, and I just started having all of these different symptoms: stiffness in the morning, like joint pain. I was limping to class some days. I was having trouble picking like my book bag up, and all kinds of different random, weird, crazy symptoms that didn't make sense. It wasn't until, though, that my hair fell out that I really took it seriously. Everything else I kind of excused away, like, oh, you're just tired or you're just stressed. Even though you're sleeping more, but you're still tired. You're anemic. All of these different random symptoms, I found ways to excuse it away because I didn't have time for it. And when I lost my hair and had patches gone, that was when I was like, okay, I need to see my primary care doctor. I didn't tell him about the symptoms. That's how much I didn't care about them. I was just like, fix the hair, fix the hair. And it wasn't until he did a blood work and came back, he started asking me questions and was like, so do you have joint pain? How's your fatigue? Are you always tired? How's your iron? Are you anemic? Like, he just went through this list, and I had all of these symptoms, and including the butterfly rash that I thought was just a sunburn. I was able to come to a diagnosis with the rheumatologist who happened to be next door. It's my vanity that saved me and helped me start figuring out my path to lupus. Like, my hair, praise God, has been a lot better since then, and that's not the symptom. Sometimes this will thin a little bit. It was a stark reminder that what we don't take care of inside can sometimes show up outside.
Kamaria Laffrey contracted HIV from a one-night stand in 2003, but she didn't discover her status until after giving birth to her daughter. She had hidden her pregnancy and avoided prenatal care, so when her newborn daughter was tested for everything, the presence of HIV antibodies in her daughter's system revealed Kamaria's own diagnosis. At 21, a young black single mother, newly diagnosed and depressed, she searched desperately for someone who looked like her.
Diagnosed in 2003 in college, well, after college, for having a one-night stand. And I name that and I talk about that because people living with HIV are often not seen as people who can experience or are supposed to experience pleasure. I wasn't a victim. There wasn't some predator like coming after me. I just had consensual sex without having the conversations about our health. Met that guy, never saw him again, and then met someone else a year later and got pregnant. I hid my pregnancy, so I didn't have prenatal care. When I finally did give birth, every baby is born with their mother's immune system. About 6 months to a year, they build up their own antibodies. So when I had my baby, they automatically tested her for everything under the sun, and that's when they told me the presence of HIV is in her body, which means you're HIV positive. And so I just kind of went numb and into this depression. Google wasn't what it is today. I remember like searching for other people who looked like me, lived like me, single parents that were going through this diagnosis and couldn't find anybody. It was Ryan White. It was a beautiful advocate named Richard Garner in South Florida. But they were all white folks. I couldn't find outside of Magic Johnson and Hidea Broadbent, rest in peace.
Kamaria believed that if you can't find representation, you become it. After learning that her daughter was HIV negative and that she'd need to take medication forever, Kamaria decided that if she couldn't find anyone who looked like her to talk about HIV, she would have to do it herself. She went through a quote-unquote disclosure tour with her family.
I went through this whole disclosure tour with my family of like making sure everybody was cool with it because stigma was real. And I'm doing all of this without knowing anything about policy. So my family was on board, supportive. I was raised very conservative, very Christian. So it was, you have a testimony and God is using you. And so I rolled with that. And I started speaking in schools around 2007. It took me a while to get up the courage and get the words right. 2007, I started going into high schools in a different state. Florida wouldn't let you, couldn't come on the campus talking about sex, HIV, nothing. Abstinence only education, which I am the product of. So let's see how that works. Over time, I've started building relationships with different people in different departments of health and joined some advocacy spaces.
Valarie was raised with the strict rule that family health issues stayed private, never to be discussed. Pre-pandemic, she never imagined she'd be sharing her cancer story on social media. But as she attended appointments and spoke with other Black patients, she noticed they weren't receiving the same quality of care or access to resources she had. And many didn't even know these options existed. That compelled her to evolve into being a public advocate.
You could not have told me that I'd be on social media sharing my story publicly, because that just wasn't me. I was raised in that household of, hey, what happens here stays here. We don't talk about whatever sickness it is, we don't talk about it outside of our circle. I found that the more that I was going to appointments, the more that I was talking to people that looked like me, they weren't getting the same type of care that I was getting. They didn't have access to certain things. And a lot of them, they didn't know about it. So for me, it was just sharing my story and letting people know that these things are available to you. Let's learn how to advocate for yourself so you can get the care that you deserve. I'm a very private person. Some of the stuff that I share, I still can't believe I'm sharing it, but I'm evolving. I like to say that I'm evolving, and I know that in sharing my story, if it reaches one person and it gives that person the power for them to make a decision, that's what it's about.
Valarie also admits that she would want the person who immediately thought quote-unquote guinea pig when hearing about clinical trials, haunted by the history of exploitation of Black people in medical research. Educating herself about the science behind clinical research shifted her perspective.
The first thing that always came to my head was, I don't want to be a guinea pig. That's not for me. I know what has happened in the past, when Black people even think about doing clinical research. So I was that person. I thought those things. I thought about getting the placebo, the sugar pill. I thought about being taken advantage of. But the more I educated myself about what clinical research is and really understanding the science behind the science, that's what kind of shifted my perspectives, because I had an understanding. And I think when the African American community has an understanding of what clinical research is and what it is not, I think that we would be more likely inclined to participate. As African Americans, we often think about clinical research along the lens of what has happened in the past. There have been some terrible things that's happened in the past, and we have to acknowledge those things. But I think that we have to move forward thinking along the lines of multiple myeloma. It's an incurable disease. So, in order to find a cure, we're going to have to be a part of that.
Valarie acknowledges that the community must move forward, especially for incurable diseases that disproportionately affects African Americans. As a research advocate, she worked directly with researchers to get the language right, breaking down complex medical terminology into accessible information. Her goal is to eliminate language barriers so her community can make informed decisions.
A lot of times it's just language barriers. People don't understand those big, long words that's being said. So just getting that language back and bringing it back to my community and providing that knowledge to where people can make informed decisions and not decisions based on what has happened in the past when it comes to clinical research.
Kamaria lived openly with HIV before learning in 2015 that her disclosures could be used against her in court. Kamaria discovered that approximately 35 states had HIV statutes of limitation written in the early 1980s when the disease was still called GRID, or gay-related infectious diseases. In Florida, it's a third-degree felony with no statutes of limitations if any partner claims non-disclosure, regardless of whether transmission occurred or whether protection was used. Even with signed disclosure forms, medical records can be subpoenaed and weaponized. These laws, rooted in panic and stigma, continue to target the most vulnerable communities: Black and brown people, LGBTQIA individuals, and sex workers.
So putting things in your medical records is kind of tricky because then if a law enforcement subpoenas it, they can look at a point where you're in a transition of your medication and look at your labs and be like, oh, you were detectable, so you weren't on your treatment, so you were trying to give it to your partner, and that may not be the case, but you can't prove otherwise. So these laws are really, really messed up. Florida, as specifically, it's a third-degree felony if any of my partners, no statute of limitations, so at any time come out and say that I never disclosed my HIV status to them before we had sex. You can Google me, you can search me, I am very public, none of that matters. I have to establish that they understood at point of intimacy how they could and could not get HIV. I didn't learn about this. My diagnosis was in 2003. I didn't learn this was a thing until 2015. So I'm out here living my life dating, disclosing. At this point, I was also married. I had met my husband through church. He was also living with HIV. And even when we got married, we didn't know about these laws and like what disclosure legally looks like.
Shanelle didn't monetize her poetry right away. She started with love for the art form and community. She competed in poetry slams and open mics. The HBO Deaf Poetry Jam platform helped, but most opportunity came from being genuine and developing relationships with other poets and artists who would invite her to their cities.
I didn't start monetizing right away. It was more important. I always loved the connection. So I would compete in poetry slams when I first started. I would do open mics. I love the community of poetry. I love the idea that people that didn't know each other were sharing parts of themselves and sharing their stories. And I've always been a storyteller and a lover of people. So for me, it just made sense that I would be wherever poets were or wherever art was. And so the more you do a thing, the more you're in community, the more opportunities come about. And those just shift and change. And I won't act like HBO Deaf Poetry Jam wasn't a big platform at the time. And that's what allowed me to tour initially. But a lot of it was, me hitting people up like, hey, I'm going to be in DC. Is there a poetry spot over there? And connecting with other artists doing really cool things. And then when they do cool things, they're like, Shanelle, can you come out here? Sometimes I'd pay my own way back then or figure it out or take a Greyhound bus. You don't start out with the money. You start out with the love. I firmly believe that. You start out with the community, and then the community pours back in.
All three women moved from silence to uncertainty to speaking out and sharing. That shift wasn't easy, but it was necessary. For Shanelle, one moment, one poem changed everything. She wrote a poem called quote-unquote Vanity while hospitalized with lupus. She never intended to perform it publicly. During the feature at the New York Poets Cafe in New York City, she had extra time and spontaneously shared it. The response was palpable. People approached her saying they had lupus, their family members had it, they'd lost loved ones to it, and that moment launched her advocacy journey.
The poem Vanity, I wrote that while I was in the hospital, when my first hospitalization with lupus. I was just kind of talking my story, talking through what happened. And I never thought to perform that. And one day I was featuring at the New York Poets Cafe in New York. And I had a little extra time at the end of the set. And I was like, well, I guess I'll do this new poem I have. And prior to that, I wasn't talking about lupus. I wasn't really sharing with people. I held it close to the chest. I didn't like the idea that people could think something's wrong with me or start going, oh, are you okay? I didn't want any of that, or pity. I didn't want any of it. But I shared that poem that day, and people came up to me after and were like, oh my gosh, I have lupus. My sister has lupus, or my aunt passed from lupus, or my uncle has it. And it just showed me that this was another layer of connection that was really important and necessary, because people were like, I didn't know anybody else had it. I started hearing that a lot. I recorded it and posted it online, and someone that was connected with one of the lupus foundations reached out to me and said, yo, I just talked to them. You should perform this at the Walk for Lupus. And that was the beginning.
In Valerie's third year attending HealtheVoices, Served as both an advisor and a participant. She discovered chronic conditions she'd never heard of and connected with advocates facing daily challenges yet still showing up for their communities. The conference is where burnt-out advocates get poured into and refreshed, a necessary refilling of cups so that they can return to their communities and continue serving.
I was an advisor and a participant, just to see how it all comes together from beginning to end. I really enjoyed seeing that. Two things I like about Healthy Voices, it's just the connections and the learning. This year, I learned about chronic conditions and diseases that I had never heard of. I didn't know they even existed. So just to have that exposure to other people and just to hear their stories and what they deal with on a daily basis, yet they continue to show up and be there for their communities. I loved it. Healthy Voices it's a great place for connections. It's a great place just to learn about other diseases and just to be poured into. You may be feeling burnt out coming in, but by the time you leave, you will be poured into and refreshed. And I take it from my fellow advisor, Joe. He said this a couple of times, just having your cup refilled. We think of trying to go out and help all the other people within our community, but we can't pour from an empty cup. So Healthy Voices is a way for us to fill our cups to be able to go back into our communities.
Kamaria's session at Healthy Voices became a relaunch of Empowered Legacies, the platform she built with her late husband who passed in 2019. She didn't realize until she started speaking that she was channeling conversations about engaging with people beyond their diagnosis.
I also have empowered_legacies. That's EMPOWERD_LEGACIES. That is something that my husband and I built together. He passed in 2019. So Healthy Voices, a lot of folks in the room don't realize this, but the session that I did was a relaunch of that. I didn't even realize I was doing that until I got up and started talking. And everything fell into place of remembering the conversations that he and I had about how to engage with people beyond your diagnosis, because everyone's an advocate, I believe. We're advocates from birth. We're only given our voice to be able to articulate what we need to have people respond to us. And that should never be taken away from anyone. So Empowered Legacies is built around that. So I'm relaunching that kind of, sort of. No, I am relaunching it. I'm grateful to Healthy Voices in that space and for everybody that was in that room, with the theme being the power of us. I needed that and I didn't even realize it. And I've been riding that vibration of power ever since.
After attending Healthy Voices for the first time, Shanelle was struck by the beauty of advocates united around helping people with diseases live better lives through the stories and conversation. Meeting other advocates revitalized her sense of purpose for lupus warriors and for addressing health equity issues broadly. She continues her webinar series called Living with Lupus and seeks speaking opportunities for Black History Month, Women's History Month, for lupus awareness, and Poetry Month.
It was my first time there. Oh, it was so beautiful. Everyone was so sweet. I think the idea that we're all united around an altruistic cause, our own causes, just the idea of helping people who are living with disease live better lives through our stories, through our conversations. It was just such a great space, and I met such amazing people like yourself who are doing such great things on their own. I really, really enjoyed it and felt revitalized around the work that I need to do for fellow lupus warriors and for people in general around health issues and equity. It was really, really great being in that space. I have a webinar on living with lupus. We're in our 5th season. We're hoping for a 6th season at the top of the year. And it averages about 45,000 views an episode. We're just hoping to continue that forward and just find more ways for lupus warriors and those living with chronic illnesses to feel supported. So just a lot of speaking. I'm still booking for Black History Month and Women's History Month and National Poetry Month. But yeah, I'm just doing whatever God puts in my hands. I'm going to work on it.
Kamaria created an awareness day occurring on February 28th, strategically placed in the middle of Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day, which occurred on February 7th, and Woman and Girl HIV Awareness Day. which occurs on March 10th. The date also honors Elizabeth Taylor's birthday, whose foundation partnered with the launch of the Awareness Day.
There's an Awareness Day that I did create intentionally at the end of Black History Month. I chose that day to kind of highlight the two communities that are most impacted by HIV and by these statutes. Also, at the time of the launch, we partnered with the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, and Elizabeth Taylor's birthday is the 27th. So it worked out really beautifully how we were able to launch it. It has now gone global because it's always been a global issue, but more partners have come forward. So there was a whole rebrand to make it more inclusive of other countries and how their jurisdictions prosecute people living with HIV around disclosure and exposure.
Shanelle recommends that if you're going to become an advocate, start with nonprofits and foundations that offer training programs teaching advocates how to lobby on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. and advocate for funding. She emphasizes finding people doing the work you're interested in, learning from them, and growing together.
I really love the work that nonprofits and foundations are doing. And that's a good space. A lot of them do have training programs. A lot of them have things where they'll help you learn how to be an advocate and go to Capitol Hill and advocate for funding. And those are really, really good spaces to at least start and get into the work and see and meet other people that are doing that work too.
With many changes on the horizon, you would think that science and policy now work together, but often they don't. Fighting back against these systems. Take Valarie's own breast cancer diagnosis, for example. It was caught during a routine screening mammogram.
I've just learned that there's awareness piece, that educational piece about early detection and going to have your mammograms, how important that is. That's how I found mine. I didn't find a lump or anything. I was just going about my daily life and went in for my regular screening mammogram, and it was picked up in that sense there. So just learning that we have to do what we can. We as African American women, we're doing a lot of stuff, and even men, because I understand breast cancer doesn't just affect women. We are doing a lot. We're taking care of families. We're trying to manage careers, but we have to slow down and listen to our bodies when something doesn't seem right or doesn't feel quite right. We have to listen and take action for those things.
The power of being seen and the paradox of advocacy. Sometimes you must be vulnerable and visible. Yet that visibility can be exhausting and should not consume your entire life. As you wrap up this video, Valarie provides practical advice.
If you're on a chronic disease, cancer journey, you're not alone. There are individuals out here that are experiencing some of the same things that you may be experiencing. Let's come together. Let's learn together. Let's lift each other up, and let's just stay focused on the mission. Have some hope and keep enjoying life as best you can.
Kamaria discovered she had a distinct, raspy voice that people recognized even without seeing her face. Strangers approached her, having heard her on podcasts or interviews, and she learned to embrace that level of visibility. Kamaria is also relaunching Empowered Legacies, the platform that she built with her late husband. The HealtheVoices theme in 2025, which was the power of us, resonated deeply, giving her the energy and clarity she needed without even realizing it.
There's YouTube videos of me doing other podcasts and interviews and things of that nature. People have heard my story in different platforms, and then I bump into them. One thing I've learned is I have a distinct voice. People recognize my voice without seeing me because I've been in places, because I'm short, and someone will turn around and like, Kamaria? And I'm like, hey, how are you? Oh my God, I heard your voice. And I was like, where do I know that voice from? And they'll pull up a video, and I'm like, hey, I love my little raspy deep voice. So I've grown to love it. And I love that people connect with me. And with HIV being such a stigmatized condition based in a lot of hatred and misunderstanding and being ill-informed, it's nice that people can see me and know that I'm living with it and still relate to me as a human. I know a lot of people live with HIV that don't have that experience. They're very isolated and feel very alone. I don't like saying I'm the voice for the voiceless because they have a voice, but I'll absolutely step in the gap for people who just need to see someone else that looks like them do this. And so I'm really grateful for this platform, this opportunity, and getting to know you and learning a lot more about you.
These three powerful advocates have three different health journeys, but all intertwine common threads. The courage to share their stories, so others don't have to face their diagnoses alone, the power that community brings, and the necessity of rest. Shanelle Gabriel reminds us that sometimes vanity can save life. Kamaria, Laffrey showed us that disclosure is an act of power, not weakness. And Valarie Traynham demonstrated that breaking the silence can break down barriers to care. Connect with all three advocates on social media. The handles are in the description. And remember, you are not alone on your health journey. Your story is your power. Share your story. Don't let anyone dim your light. I'm Zaakirah Muhammad, and this has been a special edition of the See Life Different podcast from the HealtheVoices Conference by Johnson. Until next time.